Have you ever felt that being a Christian was not the best path to take through life? One wonders what John the Baptist may have been thinking. He was arrested, though he was the forerunner of Jesus himself, and then there was an event where a lady danced. Herod Antipas, who watched the dance, offered to give that lady a great reward. She goes to her mother, who happened to be the new wife of Herod, and the mother suggests, why don't you ask for the head of John the Baptist on a platter? Now, why would Herodias, that mother, make such a request? Well, John the Baptist had made it clear that the marriage between Herod Antipas and Herodias was not God-pleasing. She had divorced her previous husband, and now Herod was making her his own wife. This was not God's plan for marriage. So she got her revenge. There's a story that Josephus tells. We have every reason to believe that it is accurate. A story about how Herodias later on in her life was once again eager to get her husband to do something that she wanted him to do. You see, Herodias was the daughter of Aristobulus. Now, Aristobulus was one of the sons of Herod the Great, just like Herod Antipas was one of the sons of Herod the Great. But Aristobulus was executed by his father in 7 BC. So Aristobulus' wife, along with their children, went to Rome. So Herodias and her brother Agrippa, along with others, were now in a very faraway place. Well, Agrippa, as he grew up, he was kind of a no-good brother. He gambled and acquired great debts, and at one point he was in such desperate financial straits that he actually had to go live with his sister, Herodias. And as she was reflecting on this, living with her and her husband, Antipas, she didn't like him, and, well, when they were in Rome, after they had to leave because their father had been executed, Agrippa, her brother, had become good friends with family members of the imperial family, and one of his best buddies was Caligula, whose name you might recognize as a future emperor of Rome. But the fact is that he and Caligula were riding in a chariot, and Agrippa says to Caligula, it'd be nice if you were emperor in Rome now, and Tiberius was emperor at the time. A number of events played out, and the chariot driver was in difficult straits. In fact, he was accused of something, and in order to get himself out of that, he said, I've got information on somebody really important. He ended up telling Tiberius that this Agrippa had suggested that it would be better that Caligula be emperor instead of Tiberius. Well, how did Tiberius feel about this? Tiberius said, you are out of here. He put Agrippa in prison for 6 months, because 6 months later, Tiberius died, who becomes the next emperor. Caligula and his best buddy is in prison. So he gets him out, and then he gives him a great honor. He sends him back to the land of Israel as a king of territory that was just to the north of the territory where Antipas and Herodias were living, where Antipas was in charge. Well, this really made Herodias mad. Here was her no-good brother who now had greater honor than her own husband. Her brother was called a king, her husband wasn't. She tells her husband, you gotta go to Rome and ask for the status of being a king. And Antipas said, no, that is a bad idea. But finally he gives in to her, and he goes off to Rome to ask for this status that would now equal that of her no-good brother Agrippa. Well, Agrippa finds out that Antipas is headed to Rome, and what does Agrippa do? He is envious, and he sends off his servant right after Antipas to reveal some information. It so happens that when Antipas goes to Caligula and asks for the new title, there comes another individual who passes on a note. And the note explains that this Antipas guy who's asking for the new title actually had 70,000 sets of armor stored up, and he was plotting to revolt against Rome. Now, we don't know for sure that he was actually plotting, but all Caligula asked him was, do you have 70,000 sets of armor stored up? And Antipas couldn't deny it. It was well known, and Caligula automatically concluded that he was guilty of plotting a rebellion and sends him off into exile in Gaul. Now, his wife, Herodias, Caligula was going to treat her in a more gentle way, given that she was the sister of one of his best buddies. But she said no. She said, I'm going to stay with my husband. And that really made Caligula angry. She ended up going into exile with her husband, and he took all of her wealth, and, well, now she had truly lost. Ironically, who got to control the land that Antipas once controlled? Well, it was Agrippa, the very one of whom Herodias was jealous. So what does this say? That Herodias and her husband ended up in exile in Gaul? Like, we know that that exile, that physical exile, was nothing compared to the consequences of rejecting the truth that Jesus and John came to share. But it does remind us that when one has the appearance of gaining victory in an earthly way over a believer in Jesus, that is not evidence that true victory has been gained. Finally, we realize that our true victory is an eternal one, even as bad things can happen to us on earth. But it's also true that those who think that the only true victories can come on earth can in a moment lose everything. When you feel a bit discouraged because of the trouble that can come into life, because you are a Christian, don't be discouraged. You will be freed from all trouble. You will be set free from all of the challenge that is faced on earth. To be a Christian is absolutely the one and only path to guaranteed victory. Praise the Lord for that path that you are on.